I believe we are supposed to be doing the aesthetics, and that part we didn't do yet. Or did we? No, I don't think so. Aesthetic is what we call wild card or placeholder. Uh, the process is called truncation. I don't think we did that. So I'm going to finish this and a little bit on quantitative data analytics. That was something we did. I didn't finish. So I will, for now, I would consider business of research to be completed or research in business. That is module three. And because I'm sorry I missed the class on Friday, so I'm just going to add one extra class, which is going to be next week, Monday, and that should be it. Hopefully, there'll be no other interruptions. Something just came up the other day, and I didn't think that I had a meeting with the attorney, and I just was this guy is very difficult to get hold of. I didn't want to postpone it, just didn't mark it in my calendar. So that was my mistake. Anyway, that having said, let's continue. I will roll back to the analytics part and let's look at the quantitative analytics, one of which we will discuss. I mean, there's so many different methods and ways in which we do analyze the quantitative data, which is numerics, all numbers. But we look at the ones which is considered fundamental or basic. Okay, what did I do? This is it. How was your weekend, by the way? I forgot to ask you. It was good? It was fun or
Good,
laid
thanks.
back?
Quiet, but good.
Good. Quiet is good. Quiet is not bad. Sometimes we need that quiet. We need that quiet sometimes. Yeah. So here it is. The numerics. Now, quantitative analytics. Obviously, these are all numbers that we get to work with the type of data, which is, you can pretty much call it, you know, relative data or bivariate, we call it. Data alone by itself does not have such any meaning in analytics. There has to be at least two values, we call it bivariate, or more than two, we call it multivariate. In the statistical methods, which is what we'll be discussing, there are three fundamentals or the ways of measurement that we can pretty much, you could say that it is coming from the subject of statistics. In high school, you probably remember mean, which is average value. We do that all the time, even in our daily lives. We look at a lot of measurements that talk about the averages or mean. Mean is the average value. And then we've got something called median, and then there is mode. Median is, remember when we did sampling, we talked about structured sampling or nominal data or ordained or ordinal data. And in that, we talked about how one of the ways in which we gathered the sample was just putting the names of the employees in the sequence or in the alphabetical order with the first name starting from A and then following B, C, and D. And then we took the eighth employee. That eighth employee was something that we call median value or median. Um, even though I don't know what it means literally, but median is a number that you select uh, when you put the scattered number or scrambled number in some order, and then you're looking for what the middle or the value of the eighth number or following eighth number after that, or 16th number, what is the value there, where each number is an object, is considered an object. So let me just show you with an example. In this slide, you can see that average, how the average is calculated is nothing complicated about that. You add all the numbers that are laid out, divide them by the number of those numbers, or how many numbers are there. So there are six numbers, and all of these added together divided by six gives us an average of five. Then let's look at the median part. In median, you've got different numbers, and assuming that, at times number might repeat itself because these are objects, and objects can be two or three also. So let's suppose that we have an array of numbers 65, 55, 89, all randomized, no order in the upper table or this one that I'm pointing to. Supposing if we had to calculate median, we are going to arrange them from the lowest number to the highest number in the order that is laid out here. And if suppose we had to look for the number or select a number from either side, um, in this case, this one, two, three, four, five, sixth number. So we've got the sixth number that we are pointing to as the median number. And then if we want to carry on with the sequence that follows after the number 56, whatever will follow, we will again go back and look at the other number or the next number, which is going to be another sixth number. So for now, 56 is a median, is a value in between, or it is selected or assumed to have a consistent way of looking for the numbers that fall as the sixth value after the last sixth number that you found or you pointed to. So 56, and then you're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there could be the sixth number after 92. That is a follow-up, or the next number we call median. Mode, on the other hand, is the variant, which is one extreme of where the lowest and the highest value meet, or a point where the highest delta, especially in the graph sense, the highest value on the graph is pointing to, or that could be the extreme point. So that could be a mode. Mode can be a lowest point or could be a highest point. So that is mode, there's two extremes. Okay. So that's just to give you an idea. Now, because the way these numbers move, if you translate them in a graph format, and you can see that these are some of the graphs made without worrying about what it means. Just think of whatever is the movement of how the graph parabola, we call it, or the delta. If the parabola is moving in one direction or another direction, that is giving us a picture or giving a wider view or a bird's eye view of what is going on overall. So that's just a visualization of how the data sets are presented in a graph format or in a 3D format. We don't have those examples, but just so that we can stick to these figures or these ways of measuring, we call mean, mode, and median. That should be enough to get an idea of what it is about. But whatever and then we've got certain deficiencies and definitions, and we have some way of explaining what we call the conceptual understanding of how the measurements becomes effective while we are calculating mean, mode, and median. So let's look at those definitions first. There is something we call range. Okay. So if I quickly give you an idea of what range means, and if we use the term range, what it pertains to, and what is relative changes. These are, some of the ways in which you're going to explain your charts or your graphs or whatever 3D designs that come up or gives a visualization to a data set, you will be using these terminologies. Range, it is a measure of dispersion and is the difference between the lowest and highest value in a data set. Okay. So when it is saying dispersion, dispersion means the way in which the highest and the lowest points are to be considered as both two extremes, and between the two extremes there is a range of numbers which where you're going to place your data sets or numbers to fill those up to give a variant or give a range from lowest to the highest point, where the function or the action or the measurement of different data sets play a role, um, to to be able to um, do those actions and do those measurements inside of that range. So range is, the two extremes within which the operations or the functions of relationship happens when you place the data in between. As an example, take the size of the largest semi. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of the range measurement. And then let's look at, never mind whatever is there as the rest of the info, because we have a chart to explain it with. So we'll stick to it as the measure of dispersion and is the difference between the lowest and the dispersion is the area covered or the concentration of numbers that may congregate or maybe more thick or uh, uh, have a view for you that makes them occur in a certain area or certain numbers congregate together. So that becomes more of a concentrated range, or the dispersion is easy to look at. If it is colored spots, you can see that they are clustered together in certain area between the chart, which is a measure of lowest and the highest points. So there is this element of dispersion of values in between. But like I said, I'll explain it later, but let's just stick to the concept. Then we've got relative change. Relative change means that there is standard or measurement from which you are going to consider it to be the way of expressing that this could be the reference point, and from that reference point, anything that deviates or moves away from it, either in a direction that is lower or direction that is higher. All the time I'm visualizing a chart and x and y axis in a graph format. So that's what I'm trying to connect with as I'm explaining it. So the proportionate or relative change means anything that deviates from standard on either side of the chart. Could go negative, it could go positive, it could go left, it could go right. As long as that point is the barrier or it is the reference point from where you're going to look at the deviation. Okay. This is explaining the dispersion, or as you could say, the range, or a mix of, it's not exactly deviation, but it is a dispersion format or a range that we were talking about, or where the example was getting explained in that definition of dispersion. So looking at these two, you could see that we have comparison of tutorial groups in 2 semesters. Okay, in the first semester, you could see that the concentration is of the enrollment of students or the number of students in different groups. On the left, you could see that these are groups, or in the x-axis, you could see a group has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 students or 6 students. Okay. I'm sorry, this is not number of students, but the groups. So one group, the second, third, fourth, and fifth group. Group could be multiple students at one time. And on the x-axis, we see the number of students that have formed the group And we could see that as we cross out or put the points or the references of the on the chart, the group that is of three groups formed by four students at a time, and this is giving semester one, and the five people who got registered were in group six, and six got registered in group three. So overall, the when you add the total number of students, they might be, they might be less or more, but the way dispersion or the way we are going to look at it is what was the outcome in terms of visualizing the number of student enrollment. So you could see that the group six had five or the maximum number of students that registered, and therefore you could see in the chart that the the number of students in the number of groups, which is number 6, as a highest point or the top point, and it could be the mode also. But this is not the end of it. You need to compare it with the second semester. That means this data set is good enough to work on deviations or on range for one semester only. But if you have to measure it against the semester two, you could you could apply what we call dispersion measurability. And dispersion means that overall you could see that where in semester one there were no groups, there was zero enrollments. But in the second semester, there were three students enrolled in group one. And so if you look at the volume or the total volume of how this is shown to be compared with semester one, the volume of it or the concentration of it is more dispersed. That means it is spread more, even though the semester one shows that in one instance there were a lot more students that got registered as groups. There were six groups made, but in semester two there were far less groups made. But the dispersion factor or overall factor of how it is spread or concentrated shows that somehow there was a consistency, or compared to semester one, there were more groups were occupied, and there were students, but not as much that spiked in number of groups, which is six here, which is a higher delta point or a higher block. But here you have smaller blocks, yet it is spread enough that you could say that the semester two was more successful than semester one for enrollment of students. So this is like giving you a dispersion or range, and the range over here is 0 to 7. Okay. And here the range is also 0 to 7, but the value of number of students that got registered 7, which is the maximum, is shown here, which they failed to do in semester 1. So the dispersion gives a general idea or measurement of health of something, or idea where some event or some numbers were spread evenly, so to give it a sense of consistency. And this in semester 1 there was a spike, and the dispersion did not represent a very healthy enrollment. So that's how we are going to measure it. Anything that is showing dispersion or variability or a range is 0 to 7. That's what the range is. Okay. Variability is when you look at semester 1 and semester 2, there is a variability in terms of dispersion. So that's how the data visualization as a simplest example can be interpreted. Sometimes we also have to measure events and data frequency, which means how many times one event had happened, or depending, it's just a matter of making a logical decision on how you would do your measurement based on objective of search and based on the type of data. and the way in which you're going to apply those methodologies will also depend on your ability to apply a logic to give it a better outcome in terms of analyzing those data sets. Sometimes you have to measure what we call, for instance, event and data frequency would mean that we can apply a median as a way of figuring out like how many times some event has happened and then organizing it, organizing the numbers or the dates or the months against which how many times certain event has happened. You can place those numbers there, and then you can apply some analytics to see where there were more frequency or more of the data that was frequented, as we do in the word density analytics. When we did our indexing, you saw the indexing system was able to give you the um, measurement of what we call word density on a page. So how many times a certain word has occurred on that page, or internet research as two words, how many times it has occurred on that page. And based on that, the ranking theorem picked it up to give it some sort of statistics, or give it a value or weightage of popularity of that page. So all those methods are actually somewhat embedded or coming from statistical quantitative data analytics. Standard deviation is one more concept. You're not going to be asked a question in exam to calculate a standard deviation or apply any mathematics to figure out something or draw anything on the chart. That's not the intention of the course. And I want to make that very clear, because at times it comes as a challenge for a lot of students to be thinking that they might have to actually do their statistical analysis of quantitative data analytics. That's not what we are testing on CRS. We are just giving an example here to place that idea in your mind, that when we talk about analytics, what is typically considered within the definition of analyzing data on quantitative side and qualitative side. So that is where you will be asked to identify what it is. So if it is a chart that you're looking at, as I see it, it is what we call standard deviation chart. Okay. If you go back and look at this chart, you would know that it is dispersion or variability measurement chart. So that's the nature of the questions that usually gets asked in the exam. So standard deviation on X and Y axis means that you have a number which is what we call a mean number, average number, or a mode. Whatever you want to make it into a relative or a standard or standardized value. It could be, like I said, average, median, or mode. It's up to you. Whichever part or whichever one you want to consider as a reference point, anything that is going to be measured against that measurement point or the fixed point would be something that will be called a deviation from the standard. So if the average or the highest delta, or in this case, it seems it's a mode value, anything that is going to fall or be measured that is away from the value that is denoted here on X and Y axis. So the value, of course, you know how that gets measured. There is Y axis, and you follow this all the way down here, and then this is X axis. So if you look at this as a block, anything that is going to come or measure away, or something that is, as shown in this case, it is showing a variant on the positive side, but declining or becoming less in numbers or less in value. And the deviation can be measured at 68.26% from the main reference point. It can be in percentages, it can be in numbers, it can be in ratios, it doesn't matter. Right now, we're using the percentage. So here I'm seeing that it is deviating like 68.26% on the positive side right here, which is this block. And on the left hand side, it could be another measurement, which could be a percentage between this delta point or highest point over here and what is falling on the left. So if it is on the left, it is going to have negative values. If it is on the right hand side, it will have positive values. You don't have to calculate it. All you have to know is that the standard deviation means anything that is moving away from the standard point as a positive value, or on the left hand side, or which is declining against the reference point, that will get a negative value. Okay. So this is standard deviation. Univariate, bivariate, I explained to you the data has to have. If it is univariate, it's irrelevant, and univariate data is not it's hard to calculate. You can not univariate also means it's isolated enough that it cannot be referenced against with or alongside any other data. Bivariate is where the mathematical function or comparison for similarities or dissimilarities can be achieved because it is bivariate. Multivariate is more than two numbers or two variables, more than two variables. That's multivariate. That's about as much that we had to do with this. Now I want to talk about aesthetics a little bit. I have a few notes and then I have a slide. Let's take a 10 minutes now. I'll just set up those slides and a few notes, and we'll continue from there. We will be starting in exactly 10 minutes. I'll see you in a little bit.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Okay, I'm back and I hope you can hear me and my screen is visible.
It
So I'm
all good.
going to continue. All good to go. Thank you. Let's see. Let's run this screen. Now, this is a very special symbol, this asterisk. We call this asterisk a wild card. It is basically a placeholder telling the search to look for the missing element, which could be a single character, alphanumeric, or even an entire word or number of words. So it is quite broad in its functionality. It has the ability to ask the search to fill in the gap of where you have placed it exactly. So the placement of asterisk is of utmost importance. The process is called truncation, but that's the name given to it. Anyway, there is two type of truncation. One is what we call internal truncation, which is within a certain confines of a word, or it is an incomplete spelled word, as in this example. You can see that we have used it to fill in something that we are not sure of. We don't know if the spelling of color is COLOUR or COLR or COLOR. So we just do placement of asterisk in between to mark that, first of all, it is for correction of a spelling. We don't know if it's spelled properly. Second is if the same word is spelled in more than one way, then you can ask the search to find both types of uh, f- uh, spellings to be included in your search. So this is internal truncation, and then we've got end truncation, which mean anything that is going to follow after the last alphabet of a spelling somewhere here, or it could be a whole word and you don't know what follows after that word, or there could be a continuation of words that is missing. But two elements are important in the placement of asterisk. One is that it should have a relationship to whatever is on either side of it, or at least one side of it, meaning that it could be a number, or it could be an incomplete sentence, or it could be just one word as we have used it in COLLEG, and there is E obviously that's missing. So college or colleges or collegium. So this example is saying that end truncation means that anything that is missing, not in between a word or in between a sentence, but something that is going to be looked for after that sentence, or that one word is completed. So that's just a terminology, but it does not have any consequence in how we are going to apply it. That's just by definition. So if somebody asks what is end truncation, you would know what it is, and so is internal truncation. Okay, one of the rules of using the truncation symbol is that a sequence to at least two characters at the start of the word. So there should be at least more than one character, or more than one alphabet, before you can use the. Remember, asterisk, the main function of it is to find something which is missing, but not that it should be vague enough that it wouldn't be able to discover it. So, with two or more words, it would have the ability to make some sense out of it. Similarly, at the end, at least two alphabet or two characters or two words, at least something that it can think that it would have the ability to find something sensible, reasonably applicable. A sequence of at least three characters in any word. So if it is a word and you want to use it as two asterisks at a time, then you should have at least three characters in between, or three alphabets in this case. So this is the rule. Somehow, if you forget this rule, you might end up in some sort of trouble. That's why we are describing it right now. So three of these elements of how the asterisk would function or not function if you don't apply it. Now let's look at the actual examples. Here we have used it, as you can see, in the simplest way possible. Mary Ellen Bates. If I don't know the full spelling of middle name like Ellan or Ellen, I'm just going to put the asterisk here. But how the asterisk is going to establish what should be the exact missing characters in the middle name, it will actually look for what is on either side of it, which means it goes beyond just the word itself, because generally it is going to try to make sense of whatever you provide on either side of it as reference points or as context. So Mary and Bates is what it needs, and then it's going to look for these two, and then when it has found both of these, the second reaction would be to find the missing name in the middle. If it is something of a name which is very common or which is more prevalent, you would see, and turns out that it is Ellan for this person who may be searched more often or more popular with the name Ellen, then it is going to find that preferable or that more popular middle name. Okay. So, and remember, this is a kind of a proximity search method, which is similar to how we used AROUND, if you recall. That's to find the missing words in between, or number of words that you identify with missing from the reference points of whatever is on the either side of it. That's somewhat a similar behavior, and that's why we also call this a proximity search operator. And there are two. There is around, and then there is this asterisk. Um, you can different ways of using it. Mary Jo, and then there is asterisk in between. But remember, if there is a gap between asterisk and the whatever you've spelled as a name like Joe, and then there is a gap, and then after asterisk you put another gap, and you write Bill Gates. It is looking for all the elements or all the missing words, which could be more than one, or it could be a lot many words in between. But it has created somewhat a similar relationship as around us, and it is looking for Bill Gates and Mary Jo and whatever is the information that connects these two or somehow occur on content pages together, but at different placements. It would find the missing words, and it would then look for it and find whatever it can. Okay. So this is where the asterisk would not be just doing internal truncation or just external truncation, but it is basically finding everything that's missing in between. Okay. So this is a very, you'll get a lot many results. Okay. Um, in example three, you can see that Francis and then the last name Coppola in between asterisk. So what will happen is that it is going to default and look, and this is the shortcoming of it. It will look for more popular terms of popular names, or in this case, the popular name is Francis Ford Coppola, who has written Godfather, or maybe he's a director of Godfather. I am not sure. That's a famous movie. And he's famous enough that it will start to look for Francis Ford Coppola, and that's the first response you will get, or at least in the first few pages, you will keep getting Francis Ford Coppola. Whereas you might be looking for somebody else. So this could be the shortcoming, and you have to be mindful of that. Then you've got stop words, or words that you put inside of the quotation marks. When you do that, generally what we've accustomed to discovering is that anything that we put inside of the quotes is matched exactly as is, or it's the mirror image that it identifies with and compares. Uh, and some of the stop notations like commas, question marks, and others that basically when you put inside of quotes, it gets matched exactly as is, and it functions as if it is doing the match. This is the only notation, or the asterisk is the only notation that functions differently, even if you put it within quotation marks. So it is not going to match something that resembles the asterisk as a symbol to match as is, but rather it is going to act even inside of the quotes, because it is powerful enough to remove that barrier of exact match or verbatim match, and look for the missing terms or missing information in between. So if uh, I have put to be, or to be, like to be, is stop words, and we had to put it within quotes, and it will surely find whatever is the famous missing, uh, if it is a famous statement from somewhere, like from Shakespearean play, says to be or not to be, it will look for not, not as a word, and place it there for you. So that's another behavior, so for you to remember that it's capable of doing, you know. In the fifth example, you could see that we have used it more than once, and we can use it multiple times within a statement. As long as it is within the quotation marks, it gives it a demarcation of some sorts. It would not make the asterisk look for something that is outside of the confines of these referential words or terms that you have put on either side of it. Okay. So if I had put one asterisk here, it could mean one word, two word, or three word. And the same way, whatever follows after the word the and before bill could be more than a few words, or it could be a single word. We don't know. However, asterisk is going to look for anything and everything that has a relationship, not only to what is falling on the left of it, but in the light of whatever follows before it, including the asterisk, which has a way of filling up the space, or placing the missing words, and then give a cue, or give a signal to the next asterisk to consider that as a referential or filled in referential words that would make it into a statement, or it would find, it will be able to find things for you. Election campaign 2018 is separate, obviously, and it's just saying that one term, which is this one, needs the help of a placeholder, which is these two asterisks, with relationship to election campaign 2018 as a term you need to find in the pages you're looking for. And with the asterisk, you can also apply, like it is not an absolute command by any means. So it would function with any other operators that you use, including advanced operators. So example of the example, it's not numbered, but I'm just pointing to it. If it is intelligent semantic and then search engine, all this with the asterisk is one statement for which you need to find results in PDF formats. So you can write file type colon PDF, and you can use other operators also. And we'll see the examples of those later on. In example one, we have used asterisk, and we have used, um, you can see how we have placed it, or where the placement is requesting for the missing element, which in my opinion, or based on what you're looking at, you can tell that there are three formats, um, which is date formats, and dates obviously can be written in different styles and formats. So one of them is OCT short form, and then you've got a static placed in between, and then there is a year. So logically, what we are asking for search is to find the day for which we don't have any information. So we're going to ask it to find a day here, and or means that the next instance of competing format is 10 with the slashes, and in between again we put the asterisk because we don't know the day. Similarly, we have used the third type as well. So when we do this, we are basically looking at where the placement of the asterisk is. And placement says that here we are logically looking for a day, right? We can even make it even better if we go like this. We can put the comma here, and we can put the comma here. Even that would work, eh? Make it even more precise. So in any case, if we have to run this, let's see what happens. OCT 7th, 2003, October 7th or 8th is the date. OCT, it could even be a different way of writing it also. October 7th. Right here, October 7th, 2003. So another format. So different formats in which it is written, it can be found also. Now, one thing I will caution you is that the only thing it will not work with is if you put something like in URL, right? In URL does not entertain the asterisk. When you're doing in URL colon, and I told you it's very finicky about, the dates. I'm sorry, not only the dates, but it's finicky about how you are setting the wordings um, so that it matches exactly the way they would be put inside of a URL, or a URL should have exact same match. And when you put asterisk in with using in URL, it will not work. So that's the only exception that I would caution you about. If you're using in URL, don't use the asterisk. You can use asterisk when you're doing in text and in title, okay? Because those are words. But when you do in URL and it has to match something in the URLs, it will not work with the, I mean, it might work, but it will just ignore the asterisk, right? Totally. So it will say October 2003, you know. That's what might happen. Anyway, let's look at the other example. Okay, I have it here. So let's talk about this one. And I'll zoom in a little bit. Supposing we are talking about this example. I wrote conquering the, it is just a line from a book somewhere authored by, I mean, I forgot the name of the author, but this is a statement, conquering the grief, and you're looking for a book. So you emphasize it's a book, you put it within quotes, you emphasize it's an author. Price you're looking for coming from Amazon.com. Okay. So what if I run it now? And I have not put any of these within quotation marks yet. Okay. So if I don't put a quotation mark here, it is basically going to look for these two as reference points and these two as reference points. But there's a secondary action it will do is it will try to get everything that is followed after the word grief. Okay. Meaning that because it is not confined, because it is not placed within quotation marks, the reference is not confined either. And reference could mean it could be a longer sentence or a longer statement, and you will get a better results of far too many results unless you want it curtailed and focused on a statement which is complete enough, then you can put it within quotation marks. Okay. Here it looks like it is picked up as a piece from somewhere that's not complete statement. So if I, let's suppose, I just don't want to deal with this part right now. I mean, you can try it later, but let's make it easier. I'm just going to try this to see what comes up. Now it's not giving me any results. So that means it's a very long statement. And let me just put it within quotation marks. And now I'm going to try it. Now it will find a reference. So it did. So conquering the mysteries and lies of grief. That's what it is. Okay. This is the famous statement. So if you don't put the sentence in a quotation mark, at times the asterisk will not function. So I want you to remember that it will not function because it might be too many words, or it could be a very long para, and it could be a brief of something that it's not able to catch because there could be either far too many results, and this could be very common statement, or it is a statement that has a very long sentence or a long structure of something that goes into multiple paras, or the lines could be more than a few lines in a same para. So you need to give it a demarcation. You need to give it a parameter, or to give it a reference point that is not going infinity somewhere. So in such a case where you're not getting results, even when you're using asterisks, you need to confine it. Yet you need to have enough words on either side of it to give it the body or the meaning or the reference where you have enough context for it to act upon. So I have confined it, and I've used the quotes, inverted quotes enclosed to get my results. Otherwise, I'm not getting any results. Okay, so that's this example. Here is another example where I've used asterisks, placing something within quotation marks, and then I don't know what is the start of something or the end of something, but I know in the middle, these are the words search behavior has changed. Now, if these are common words which are used, a lot many times in different contexts with added words on beginning from or ending to, you can put a confinement or sort of make it look for fewer words. If you don't put them within quotation marks, you'll get a lot many results, and it has a behavioral issue with when you're using it as we are doing it in number three. We are asking it to find something which is not for too many words, that is preceding where this first word search is starting and where it's ending changed, and there could be words coming after, but we want it to have a somewhat mm, um, we want it somewhat boxed within quotation marks, so it does not go infinity totally. So this is another way where we can actually, when we are using it twice with first starting of a sentence or ending of a sentence, we should always put it within quotation. Otherwise, you will get so many more results. Let me try this and see what's happening. If this doesn't work as an example, then what you end up doing is that you have to open up the quotation marks. But let's do this. I think this would work better with the quotes enclosure. And now if I take the same, got 12 results. And if I put it here without quotation marks, it will start to act up. 49 results versus 12 results, right? So if I want more precision, and if I know that this is, the important wordings, but the whatever in relationship to these words, we don't want it to go and look for too many results. We will just put it within quotation marks. We have an idea that could be three or four words before or four words after. Only then we can put the quotation marks. If we know it's a very, very long sentence, we lose the quotation marks. But the cost of it is that we get far too many results, and sometimes the accuracy may not be there. So what this slide is telling you is that there are different variations of how we can use asterisks, but certain things we have to be mindful and limitations we have to understand, and a few things that we can do to make our search better. So this is why we have these examples. Okay. And as you can see in this one, we have used another operator before a certain date. Okay, so like I said, we can use other operators along with asterisks, and that is not a problem. One of the better ways of how we have applied asterisks in our searches is with the examples of looking for something within domains for which we don't exactly know the domain name, but we can only work with the extensions such as edu or org and so on. So let me just pick those examples. These are the ones. By the way, you have these queries in your notes, in your Dropbox notes. Take this example, for instance. Making some corrections here. So take example 21. Here we have used for the site, we are saying that we don't know the domain name, but what we know is that it should be coming from either government institutions or educational institutions. And notice that we have put an asterisk right after the colon sign. And then with the dot, what we are saying is that extension should be .gov. If we don't put the dot, it would not think of it as the extension, but rather as a word. So asterisk, the placement of it is denoting that the domain should be any domain that is coming from .gov site, similarly from .edu. And by the way, you saw that with the OR, you remember we prefer to put apples with apples, not apple with oranges, meaning that if it is the site command we are giving and using OR with exactly same objective, but getting it from .edu, we have used OR. Like we can't, I'm sure you will remember, we can't be removing site colon here because we are comparing sites with site or asking it to make a decision between site colon or sites that are coming from a domain. So we are not saying that go, we are not doing it like that, even though we can, but we are not going to do it. Okay. Uh, because whenever you use R, you try to use it just the way I've said it. So, what is the intention now is to look for VP, chief executive, CEO, director, executive, president, all of these are there. Don't have to put the this one within quotation marks. Okay. Let's run it anyways. And I want the word email somewhere there. So I copy this and want to, so it's .gov.edu, .org. You will not find anything that is pointing to .com. So this is another reason why you, or another way of using asterisks. Here is another example. 23. In text, I want the word contact. In text, I want, or on the page, on the body of that, on the pages, I want the word email for sure. I want the word contact for sure. And then in text, I want something that says at honeywell.com, which means that it could be a partial word that is connected to an email or it is pertaining to an email. It is the extended email for the Honeywell company for anyone that is that is to be found within the domain or has an official email address like honeywell.com. In text, I am not sure if I should put the the position or the job position exactly because every organization not necessarily they don't have the same job title. So could be manager marketing, executive marketing, VP marketing. So I can put the quotation marks in closure, and you could see that I have put asterisks in the beginning and asterisks at the end. And this placement tells the search to find anything that is missing before the word marketing or that comes after the word marketing. So this could be a very good query. Looking for positions, you can even get rid of this one also, you know, like this, even that would work. But in this case, I'm looking for something lengthier for job title. Okay, so let me try this. So it's working totally fine. Okay. Now, This is a very complicated example of asterisk, because here in this example you will find out how the asterisk placement in a lengthier search string, where certain elements are fixed to indicate the distance, the placement of dots or alphanumeric characters, or mix of anything that points to, in this case, if 28, it's pointing to a trademark act, or a reference to uh, citation or reference of anything that may have multiple values and different characters and at a different distance, with the use of commas, with the use of two dots and so on. All of these together are considered very complex for you to remember, first of all. Second of all, you can only remember bits and pieces of it, but at the same time, you also know the format of how it is laid, so that those spots where you're missing the words or characters, you can use or plug in the asterisk as a temporary placeholder for the search to find something with reference to what is next to it or either side of it. So we don't have a lot of time to work with this, but I have it explained really well in the book. And I don't know if I pointed it out before, but it does ring a bell that I had mentioned it some time ago, showing you that example. And I'd like to give you that page number so that you can go through it, um, to think of it as your homework or something that uh, I can I can suggest that you read, because this is much better explained in the book, and it would take me a while to explain it if I just do it on my own. So let me get to that. Here it is. Here it is. I recognize it. This is page number 217. Okay. So in page 217, just to give you a quick idea of what it is showing. Now, in this example, you noted the page, 217. Now, in this example, supposing that this is something that is coming in the as a reference for us to remember a clause, or some rule number in trademark law, and this is how they wrote it: R dot S dot comma, and then you have a space here, then you have 1985 comma, then you have space C, all these spaces, commas, and everything, you can't actually remember them. So what you do is that if you remember a piece of it, like in this example, it is showing, and this caret that is pointing upwards, that's just for you to, or for it to show you a space between what is coming next, or what is preceded, and is in continuation. So this is a space. This is a space. So ignore this. But let's suppose um, what you required and what you remember is 1985. You don't remember R dot S. Okay. So you are first of all going to segment it, because let's suppose you don't want to make it too large and put multiple asterisks, because that might cause bit of a problem, and that's what you have to be careful about, and it is actually mentioned in the notes here on page 217. But quickly, 1985, you remember 2014. So in the first segment, I am only looking for something that is following 1985. Okay, and I'm going to put it within quotes to give it a demarcation of the area, or making it into a smaller unit. and still it is one long search query. It's not like it is separate. So you could see that whatever is followed after, or there's another quoted segment, which is also using the asterisk. It is separated as B1, uh, separated as two different um, confined ranges. In between, you can see that we have put two dots. Two dots stands for a range. Uh, we didn't do that, but it's mentioned, it's there in the examples. If you look at the examples, we've used two dots. So two dots is giving a range, and range means range between what is over here and what is following after, which is pertaining to 2014. So what this range did is found something over here, then it looked for the missing element for which you don't have any information, you don't even remember, so you gave it a range, and then you made it another block like this one, uh, like this one. And here you have placed an asterisk, which could mean this element, which could also mean all this together. Okay. But the range makes it even more safer. Okay. And after that, so it is a language. You are now communicating with the search engine using asterisks and using the range here, or the two dots is a range which is for anything in between for which you do have zero knowledge, you don't know about. So the placement is number one thing, before and after leaving a space, which means after 2014 there is a comma, which you remember. After the comma, you don't remember C dot 20. So you left a one character gap as it is over here, and you gave it an asterisk. At the same time, you segmented it into two halves, and you put the two dots as a range. So what you end up getting is this B2. It's complicated. If it is too complicated, you will not get it in the exam, because that's how I see how, the exam questions are set. And lucky enough, it's not going to be bothersome if you have to, you know, do it, or you're tested on it. Okay. So we have to start something else now. Any questions? Oh, by the way, okay, never mind. Let me do one. Um, Now, if you have to look for something that is what we call notations and symbol, if you have to search in social media, do you know what you're going to do? How you're going to search in social media? Especially understanding the symbols like @ and hashtag. Today I've got this paper done, so I can see if there's anything I missed. I sort of have put it in my notes today. So I'm referring to my notes in front of. Okay. In fact, let me just open it. I want to talk about some notations, the hashtag and the two dots, which is for the range, and the @. Starting with the hashtag. Now, hashtags is just a hashtag is a symbol. We also call it a pound sign. And apparently, when it originated, the origin of the hashtag was that it used to give a line number when we were doing coding work. So if I have to do anything that says to default to a certain line in a code, or whatever the user gets to see would come to that exact line, or where the line defines a data field, I would put a hashtag and put the line number. That's where I would have understood the hashtag to have a meaning for programming reasons. As you can see right here in this example, you can see where it says, and this is a URL, it says .html, and then there is a hashtag apple, hashtag orange. So it defaults to these words or the numbers. If it could be a hashtag 32 instead of apple, it could be, where apple is mentioned. If you click on a URL, it would take you to a line which talks about apple. So that's where it originated from. And what happens now is that hashtag has transformed, and this was one symbol taken for making it, or uh, using it with the word or value or anything that is what we call the property name, which defines a subject, defines a topic, or under which all different subtopics or related topics would be able to open up, or it could be a key or a door to open up or refer to a specific topic, so that the information is easier to get to. And even for anyone who is putting their information on the internet, they might put it in a slot or give it a label or make it come under the umbrella of a hashtag with which has a name. Hashtag alone does not have a meaning, really, when it comes to defining the tags. A tag means that there should be a hashtag followed by the name of what the subject or the topic is. So let's suppose we have hashtag story time. Okay. This means that anything that has to do with story time, or it could be an article, it could be any writing, it could be any mention of something, but as long as it has something to do or it needs to be organized under story time, that would give it a tag. And that tag is where we are using it in social media account quite often, just to be found or just to be identified with one topic. And at the same time, the owner of the site would also tag few things or give it a hashtag to put the related subjects under one umbrella. So tag would have different meaning for different people in different sense. And now the hashtag has become a symbol which represents not only the topic, but additionally it attaches, or it gives, or it works with the what we call the handle, or the handle of a social media. Handle could be your specific name, your title, your pseudonym, of with which you need to be recognized and to be found quickly. So a handle would start with at, as something that, um, here it is in Twitter, for example, the handle is Chris Messina, for instance, at Chris Messina. So at they have now started using to define the or give a name or a handle. The same sort of phenomena or same occurrence you will find in Instagram. Okay. So Chris Messina, for example, in Twitter has a handle with this name. And then following the topics, Chris Messina would want to look for a topic that has to do with White Sox, for instance. So the tag, which is an internal tag in Twitter, would show up with the hashtag symbol first and the word White Sox after. So whenever you're doing a search with a hashtag, you're basically chasing after tags. Tags are more commonly used in social media accounts these days. Okay. So the idea is to find the tags, but not necessarily the information about the handle or the user itself. So a broader aspect of a subject can be opened up by hashtag. It is not actually opening up or chasing after a handle which is separate. But you may want to use at times, you can use at and then, whatever handle you are looking for. And then next to it, you can also put a subject like, hashtag white socks, for instance. So if I have to write a query here and I want to find a relationship between hashtag white socks and Chris Messina, for instance, I could do or search in the social media. Let's say it could be twitter.com site. I don't even know if it is real or not. Really, I just picked it up from somewhere. So let's suppose it's a site twitter.com, and let's just do our own. Okay. So we have A of IRS. I don't know if it's RSS or S anyway, at A of IRS. And I want a hashtag uh, web search. Okay. So if there is a subject or a tag that is followed by the word web search and it has a relationship with OFIRS and I'm talking about Twitter, might be able to find something on this. And if I don't want to even use the site Twitter, I should still be able to find something in social media accounts. But let me do this first, and then I'm going to show a variation of how I can find other uh, same information in other social media sites. So right now, let's do Twitter. So maybe add AOFIRS does not exist. So that's why it's not coming. So I just removed AOFIRS. I just put add here, and I keep getting information from Twitter, and I keep looking at the hashtag web search. Now, if I wanted something that I can find for AOFIRS, should be something. I don't quite remember what it is. But let's do another thing. I'm just going to remove Twitter and I'm going to do A of IRS as a word. I should go to all, these will all come as social media sites. So LinkedIn is social media, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. Um, it's all uh, Tumblr. These are all social media sites because normally in all social medias you should see hashtag, but not necessary. However, a greater chance that you will end up finding a lot of results with relationship to AOFIRS on social media websites particular. To find if what is my handle for Twitter for the association. So if I didn't get a handle AOFIRS because somebody else took it, then there could be a pseudonym. I don't know about that. So this is the problem where you won't be able to get to it unless AOFIRS is. Here, AOFIRS is in Twitter. This is my handle. I suddenly remembered it. AOFIRS, I'm getting that at AOFIRS. So if I had written, if I'd remembered it, I should have been able to find this one. Correct. All right. The two dots. Now, when we use two dots as a range, what are we saying? What are we asking? This is more complicated. So here in this, what am I doing? I'm asking to go to the laptops page or a laptop, Intex Toshiba, Intex HP, Intex Lenovo, either of these three brands I need, but I don't want to go to HP.com. I don't want Amazon. I don't want Staples. I want something in Orlando, 32835. This might be too tight. I would just get rid of this part. And here I've used two dots to give a range to 32835 to 32839, which is, zip codes in Orlando, but the range means anything that is 32835, 32836, 7 until 839. But at the same time, remember the two dots means that you will be able to find the range or any number within range, but it does not exclude other numbers from appearing. Okay. Or you cannot use a minus sign to exclude certain zip codes or even certain prices. So the other side of it is that you will find a bunch of numbers or bunch of values or prices or whatever you pull. And by the way, with the two dots, you can put values in dollars with the symbol attached. So it could be dollar 500 to dollar 800. These examples are here in the, you can see I have put in more than 60 examples and they cover everything. Just so you know, if you won't miss out on anything, you can try them when you have time. So let me try this and see what happens. 32837. I'm just going to look at the range. I don't want to do anything else. 32837, 32824, 32839, 32839. So the range 32837, 32839. Apparently, that is where you will find most 32836. Okay. So they are still within the range that you have given. So that takes care of the two dots. Almost done. Okay. I think we are good with everything that I needed to finish up before we get to the last leg of our course, which is the module 4. We are going to talk about the internet law. We'll talk about internet ethics. Uh, I can finish it up in 2 classes, which means by Friday we should get done with everything else. On Monday, I will do an extra class where I will talk about the exams. I'll show you the practice Q&As, approach to how you're going to attempt your final exams, answer any questions, um, anything specific that you want explanation on. So that would be kind of a wrap-up class, which is going to be on next week on Monday. but the other two classes are scheduled as is. We will try to finish the internet law and ethics in the next two classes. um, if anything gets left over, then we will also try to accommodate that on Monday. Monday is where I would say that we'll be concluding everything, and we'll be wishing you the best for the exams. So let's call it an evening. I think I'm done for whatever I'm supposed to finish today. Let's meet on Wednesday for the internet law. I think it's going to be exciting, a change a little bit, and there would be case laws, which makes it more interactive. James couldn't come today; he's traveling to US. Hopefully, he should be around on Wednesday. I'm also going to check on Mike. I haven't heard from him, and then hopefully we can all finish it all together. Okay, thank you. If any questions, please let me know. So far,
So far, so
all
good.
good, Justin,
Yep.
Dorothy?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
See you Wednesday.
Okay. See you on Wednesday.
See you
Take care
Wednesday.
now. Have a
Take
Take care.
great
Have a good
evening.
evening. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.